Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and this is The Road to the Record, where I work to achieve mastery of 10 games and a hunt for the best score of the Decathlon. If you like what you see, remember to hit that like button. You want to see more? Hit subscribe. Let the games begin. This is Draft Day Sports College Basketball 2019. We're on to episode number 54. We are at the beginning of the conference portion of our schedule after a perfect 13-0 non-conference schedule, albeit an easier schedule compared to some of the schedules we've had in years past. However, our conference schedule is a rather tough one this season. Of course, there's nothing easy about being in Conference A. Looking at the opponents that we have, all but four teams in the conference. All but 4 teams in the conference are currently ranked. And the 4 teams that are not ranked are all close. Louisville, Michigan State, Texas A&M, Oregon, all with 3 or 4 losses apiece and seemingly just outside of the top 25 rankings. Meanwhile, after a perfect 13-0 start, we are ranked 14th in the nation. We're still only so high due to our prestige, because our RPI is 10. We're looking pretty good in that department. First up, though, Utah, ranked 9th, 12-1, and heavily favored. Heavily. We have a chance in this game, but it's supposed to be a rather small one as we travel. Even if we were at home, I'd say we'd have less than a 40% chance. So, Utah is one of those teams that last episode I talked a lot about kind of first tier, second tier. Utah is probably just in between. They're not quite first tier, but they're definitely at the high end of the second tier. So, while they're not a full 2.0, they're kind of like a 1.5 team, as they quickly open the scoring with a fast break bucket there to lead 2-0. And now 4-0. 6-1. Finally, we start getting into the game a little bit, and luckily, we tie the early score and have our first lead. So after a slow start the first few minutes, really starting to step up here in the last couple. Let's see if we can carry any sort of momentum, because actually it's showing that they have the momentum right now, surprisingly, despite the fact that we've gone on an 11-5 run. Let's go ahead and take a 30-second timeout, take away a little bit of the momentum that they have. And see that momentum has helped them carry through. 3-pointer there takes the momentum away a bit and gives us the edge. So we tie 16 apiece. Looking at the early stats, +2 on rebounds. We are +2 on turnovers. They're 75% from the field right now. No wonder we are struggling. We're 33% from the field. It's actually a miracle we're in this game at all. 2 for 7 beyond the arc. They're perfect. It's only 1 attempt, but still. Utah shooting the ball ridiculously well to start this game. And yet we're only down 3. And even when we went on that 11-5 run, they still had the momentum. So really surprising how easily they're building momentum in this game, and we can't. Tempted to use another 30-second here. Ooh, there we go. A couple turnovers, and we've pulled back some of that momentum, but 2 minutes left. Ouch! Ouch! Back to back to back fast break buckets. It's almost halftime. I'm going to save the timeouts now for the second half, but they just opened up an 11-point halftime lead with back-to-back-to-back. They're still shooting 68% from the field. So despite how good our defense is getting crushed right now. Rebounds are level. Turnovers are a +2. But we're making 1 out of every 3 shots. They're making 2 out of every 3 shots. And it's not helping that we're 3 for 7 from the charity stripe. Utah's still having early momentum here in the second half. We use a timeout. We need to shake this off if we're going to have any chance in this game. Otherwise, we're going to end up getting blown out. Momentum slowly starting to shift our direction. I hate that. We make the stops and then they call us for a foul. Ooh, nice little fast break bucket there. We have not generated any momentum. We just killed their momentum at least. And look at that, we've got a little momentum. And we're still in this game, technically. It's a 9-point game. 9 to play. Could happen. Just every time we get a little something going, they get something. And every little something they do, they're dunking the ball, and it's turning into big momentum swings their direction over and over again. Three minutes to play. The lead's down to 6. Missed that 3. They've got momentum. Use a timeout here. Back down to 7. 2 minutes to play. We've got a little momentum again. Final minute of the game. 5-point game. Timeout. 33 seconds. There's the quick 2. 3-point game. We have got a chance to come back. We've been fighting and fighting throughout this half and fought our way back into it. And we get the steal in the closing seconds. We steal the ball back as the clock runs out. And no chance to turn that into anything. Turnovers, we ended up +4. Rebounds, -1. We cut their field goal percentage from making 2 out of every 3 to making 1 out of every 2. Massive improvement in that department in the second half. Our field goal percentage improved drastically in the second half, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't to be. Even when we went on a big run, they still had the momentum, which was strange. When we went on that 11-5 run, and they still had 2/3 of the momentum, even after an 11-5 run. Because the 5 that they had was a dunk and a 3-pointer, while we had hard-fought baskets at the other end. So we just weren't making any big plays. So we do lose the opener on the road, and we're again on the road, this time at Oregon, who lost their opener as they dropped to 8-5. And even though we lost that game, still encouraged by what I saw. We were down, we were out, we were playing a Utah team that was on fire the entire game, and we lost by 1 basket. Now, anyone will take a win over a loss, no matter how it comes. But it's a good sign that probably the 4th or 5th best team in the conference on the road, who played extremely well, we only lost by 3 points. And nearly got ourselves a chance to tie it. So here's my big matchup. Playing my alma mater. This one's really difficult for me. Last season, Oregon, they won both games. Can we get one this year? It's on the road, and this would be a really rough 0-2 start if we lose this game. But in a tight contest, we pull off the victory. Our first victory against the Ducks. Al Morrison, 16 points, 6 assists, player of the game. Ross had 14. Cougar had 15. Added in 8 rebounds for him. 50% from the field, and so did they. Wow. 3-point, there's one area. 7 of 17 while they were 6 of 25. And we actually took advantage of our free throws for a change. Rebounds was a -2. Assists, level. Fouls, a -1. Turnovers, a +3. Tight contest. But that's a road victory. That's a big one. Road victories can be hard to come by. So let's take a look at the early scores here in conference. So Duke, Louisville, Syracuse beating Michigan State on the road. Florida beating #1 North Carolina at home in a tight contest. Cincinnati beating Oklahoma State. Miami losing to Maryland on the road. But they definitely should have been the favored team, but Maryland is a lot better team than their record and ranking suggests right now. Notre Dame winning at home. Texas A&M looking a bit inferior in that one. And then we get the close loss. And then we've got Duke winning on the road comfortably over Notre Dame. Notre Dame very much looking lower second tier. Well, Duke is very much looking that first tier that they are. Michigan State is looking a little bit weak right now because Oklahoma State is looking like a second or third tier team. So Michigan State definitely looking off right now. Wow, Cincinnati blown out by Syracuse. Louisville beating Texas A&M on the road. Miami beating Florida. That's a blowout. And that's Florida. Florida is first tier. We get the close win over Oregon. North Carolina getting revenge on Maryland. And Nevada beating Utah. That's a little worrying that they beat them by 20 on the road when we only lost by 3 to Utah, but that's suggesting that Nevada is still that first tier team, even though they are 12-1. Speaking of Nevada, that's who we play next. And Nevada's rank doesn't say much, but their record certainly does. And the fact that they were national champion, was it last year? The year before? Whichever it was, it's been recent. And they are very much a first-tier team. So I'm not sure why their ranking's down a little bit. Maybe the team they lost to was a really bad team. They had a really bad day, and it dropped their ranking considerably. But even though that's a home game and our first home game, that is going to be a very difficult game to potentially win. Alright, so other matchups, that's an obvious one. Cincinnati probably should be able to beat Michigan State there. I think Louisville has a chance against Notre Dame in that game. That's going to be a tight contest. That could be a tight contest, but Florida should be favored. That definitely could be a tight one. Miami looking really good so far. And North Carolina were #1 last week. Syracuse will definitely win. Oregon with a chance against Utah, similar to the way our game was. But Utah might be the favored one on that. And again, we've got a chance with Nevada as we move into the top 10 in the rankings. But it's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy. I really think Nevada is one of those top 4 or 5 teams. We've certainly got a chance in this game, but I would say it's less than 50-50, just based on the quality of opponent. but we're apparently capable of winning at home. We'll look at the box score in a second. Duke crushes A&M. Expected that. Cincinnati does beat Michigan State. Notre Dame beats Louisville. Kind of a tight game, but not so much. Florida beats Maryland. North Carolina beating Miami, and not close. So apparently Miami really is just second tier, like we are. Syracuse crushing Oklahoma State. That was expected. Oregon takes care of Utah, and rather comfortably. Jim Ross, player of the game, 17 points. Strong second half showing to take the win. Pretty balanced here. Only 2 points, second chance. Tight contests are out. No double-digit lead anywhere in the entire game. 8 points at the final was the largest lead of the game for, well, either team. I don't know if we had 8 points prior to the final score, but Passage, 0 points. 6 attempts. Ouch. Cougar. Ross. Yeah. Cougar almost double-double, but gets neither. Smith had 11. 4 steals. 3 for Ross. Derek Kennedy off the bench. Only 4 points, but he had 7 rebounds and a plus 20. Best on the team. Apparently he led the charge, led the comeback. Alright, so we do manage to win our first home game of the season in a very difficult matchup with Nevada. And we're off to a 2-1 start. And like I said, the front half of this conference schedule is going to be a lot more difficult than the back half. We're about to have our third road game in 4 played. And we're at number 2, Syracuse, for this one. And they are absolutely one of those first-tier teams this year. Though Syracuse has not been up here much in recent seasons. This season, they are absolutely first tier. In fact, they make us look like 5th or 6th tier on paper. Speaking of, let's take a look at that. Here's the Syracuse scouting report. There you go. 17% chance. We've got the post, but that's it. Older lineup. You don't see too many of those older lineups, but with the down years that they've had, kind of makes sense. So those next couple scouting reports, Oklahoma State. Yeah, one of the more winnable games. And even matchup with Cincinnati at home. Tight contest. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Last year, they would have been favored probably 65%. Remember, it was the non-ranked teams that we were squeezing by and we squeaked out some wins that we probably shouldn't have. Now, the shouldn't-haves we're there. We're level or slightly favored. And then that bottom tier of teams in the conference, we're still really good teams, mind you. I think we're heavily favored over them this season. I think that's why we've got a decent chance of getting better than 500. But that first tier of teams are still way better than we are. So here we go. Syracuse, fully expect a loss on this one. Would be our second of the season. I could certainly tolerate that. Like I said, we are going to lose some games. I think at least 6 of them here in the conference schedule. And this is one of the most likely. And yes, we do. We lose. It happens. Meanwhile, a 1-3 matchup. Duke and North Carolina. Everybody loves seeing that game. Michigan State beating Nevada. Ooh, back-to-back losses for them. Miami beating Louisville. Tight contest on the road. We lose 77-71. Cougar put up 19, had 13 rebounds, so big day for him, but it's not enough for blocks as well. Jerry Smith put up 12, not enough scoring support. 43% is not bad. Held them to 37. That's really good. They only made 4 threes. They had 41 free throw attempts. Screw you, refs. Seriously, 26-15 on the fouls. My guys are disciplined. Been working on that. So the refs decided the game. Chambliss goes 4 for 20. But he goes to the free throw line a billion times. And apparently his name is James Harden Chambliss. Florida, Notre Dame. Expected that. Notre Dame, I don't think, is actually second tier. I think they're third tier. Cincinnati beats Utah. Tight contest there. Maryland, definitely second tier over A&M. Oregon beats Oklahoma State. I think Oregon is on the edge of second tier. They're a better team than their record suggests. Next up, another difficult matchup. Never gets easy in Conference A. That's the beauty of this series, I think, hands down. I think the fact that Conference A just beats the living snot out of each other all season long, and to a lesser extent Conferences B and C, makes for a scenario that's way more exciting. As opposed to real life where you have super elite teams and then you have teams that have no chance against them in the same conference. And they play each other year after year. Now there's varying levels of quality in those conferences, but the Pac-12, the SEC, the ACC, these guys don't have top to bottom the best talent. So this promotion relegation system, I love it. I love it for this reason. Even if it means we never get a breather. Because next up, number 11 ranked Cincinnati, 14-3. One game worse off than us, just a couple spots below in the rankings. We are at home. But you saw from that scouting report, we are very close to a 50-50 type matchup for this game. I think it's a winnable one. I do. But the coin toss, I think, is certainly a thing too. Both of us moving up 2 spots. They take over our spot at 9th. We move up to 7th. Duke, Syracuse, North Carolina still a top 3. Florida 6. Utah 8. Miami 10. Almost all of the top 10. 8 out of 10 spots are Conference A teams. Excuse me. Alright. Here's the matchups this time. Duke, not an easy one on the road at Miami. They could be facing the potential of a loss. Same with Syracuse at Nevada. Nevada should be a first-tier team. So that could be. So chance for some big upsets. Cincinnati certainly capable of beating us, but that's going to be a tight contest. Florida should have an easy time there. Maryland should have a 60-40 chance on that one. North Carolina, that'll be a blowout. Oregon should take care of Michigan State fairly easily and probably will get back into the rankings depending on what happens second part of the week. And Utah should take care of Oklahoma State in that one. I caught a glimpse of a couple scores as they quick simmed. Did not see ours, but it did end up being a victory, so we pulled it off by 25 points. Whoa. And Duke did win their game by 1. I told you that was going to be a tight contest. And I told you that was going to be a tight contest, and the chance for an upset did occur. Nevada beat Syracuse. Florida beat Louisville, but not by a whole lot. I can't believe we blew them out. Not sure how that happened. Cougar with the double-double. Masic had a nice day, 9 and 8. I think that might have been his best game. Just one foul, too. Plus minus was really nice. Kennedy and Asbury played a lot. 13 minutes for him and a plus 20 over that stretch. Major advantage in points in the paint. Cougar had a bit to do with that. Al Morrison had 13. Jim Ross, only 2 points, just 3 field goal attempts, and only played 11 minutes. That's why Asbury picked up a bunch of extra time. Bit concerned over that one. We held them to 26% from the field, and they didn't do much better at the free throw line. We had a rebounding edge. We had an assist to edge. Turnovers, 11 to 20, so plus 9. Oof. I like it. So they shot poorly, and they turned it over a lot. Maryland beat Notre Dame, as I expected, and fairly comfortably, which I didn't quite expect it to be that. And no surprises. The bottom 4 games. Doesn't say injury, though. Is he already injured? No injuries. Al Morrison, not the best relationship, but it's decent. Matt Gordon, redshirting this year as a sophomore, so he's not too thrilled about that. Otherwise, relationships are all good. We have not been having issues in the team, and that is amazing. Now it's January 17th. We should be just about at that point. SAT scores. Not quite yet. Soon, though. Okay, Oklahoma State is our next matchup, and we are favored pretty heavily. Maryland on the road, and we go in with a chance, but they're definitely placed above us. Michigan State, that should be a win, but not by a massive amount. They've got a decent team. So 2 out of 3. You can see that. That would put us at 5-3. That'd be a good point in this season. This far into the season. And hopefully we could stay healthy, because obviously Ross did not play much in that game. I did not look to see if he had fouls. Maybe that's why he played so little. He could have had foul trouble. Suppose I can go back and look real quick. Ross. Only 3. So that doesn't seem like the likely answer. I mean, he could have had 3 fouls in the first minute and had to sit out until well into the second half. That's possible. But even then, he still should have ended up with 14 or 15 minutes at the end of the game. It seemed like he took some sort of knock and then just recovered. It happens. Okay, so Oklahoma State. It's a road game. It's not guaranteed. But this is one of the most winnable road games we're going to get this season. And remember last season, Conference A, there were 0 games that I felt confident about. Not one. If this was at home, I would be confident. On the road, there's still sub-level of uncertainty to it. But we win by 21, so I apparently had nothing to worry about. Ross, 18-13. Morrison had 15. A lot of rebounds. Only Ross in foul trouble. 40%, 32. 82, 65, 27, 19, so we outshot them. Hands down, we out-rebounded them by almost 20. We had 5 more fouls than them, but it was still a smaller number. Turnovers were level. Miami beat Texas. They look like the weakest team in the conference by far this year. They could go with only 1 or 2 wins from the looks of things. North Carolina beating Notre Dame on the road. That's why I'm saying they're not quite second tier, and I'm expecting Notre Dame to drop out of the rankings before the end of the season. Cincinnati beating Nevada, so they're getting a little revenge after we beat them. Syracuse taking care of Oregon handily. Again, they're on the edge like Notre Dame. I think they're similar teams this season. Louisville beats Maryland at home, so the lower end Tier 2 teams are vulnerable to Louisville this season. Louisville not as good as they normally are, as they are on the edge of a Tier 1 team in real life. They're definitely down, but they're still not far out from being close to like Notre Dame and Oregon. Michigan State takes care of Utah at home by 15. They're also pretty close to that level. I think Oklahoma State might be the next lowest besides Texas A&M. And Duke just beats out Florida at home. Duke, the one who's kind of taking care of duty here. But a lot of close games. A lot of close games here. So I'm not sure any one team is really asserting themselves in a way that makes you go, national champion? Yeah. No. I think Duke and Syracuse look like the strongest. North Carolina has not been as dominant, even though they only have a few losses. But definitely I would say those 3 are the clear Tier 1s this season. Florida, I think a bit lower Tier 1 status. Utah, a bit lower Tier 1 status. Miami, maybe. I don't think we've played them yet, right? No. And it's going to be a road game for that one. We get Michigan State at home next. That should be a win, and it's so nice to be able to say that in Conference A, but doesn't mean it will. Like I said, anybody's capable. I think Texas A&M is the only one, but we're on the road, so even then they'll still have a chance. Let's see. Maryland, tough game, could be a win. It's on the road, but could be. But I'd probably pick them. Florida at home is going to be a really tough game. Miami on the road would be a tough game. At home, I'd say we have a chance, but on the road, yeah, I don't know about that. So 1-3, entirely possible. 1-5, and those are both at home too. Ouch, that hurts. We could go 1-5 in the next 6 games. That could hurt a lot. 2-2 over the Final Four. We could be looking at 7-9 just based on the difficulty of our schedule this season. Now, do I think we'll go 7-9? I don't know. But I'm leaning closer and closer to an 8-8 right now. than anything better than that. But like I said, I was really only predicting maybe a 9-7 just based on talent-wise. But the schedule itself, having your home games against the best teams, could it result in a win? Maybe. Will it? Not likely. And then you go and play some of the weaker teams on the road, and maybe you squeeze out a win, but I don't know. We got a challenging schedule here. Really challenging schedule this season. I mean, there's nothing not challenging about playing in Conference A, period. It's always going to be a challenging schedule. But as far as how it could be, considering that we're not quite Tier 1, right? If we were Tier 1, I would love having Duke and North Carolina at home, because we very much could beat them. But I think the fact that they're still a notch above us puts that out of reach a bit. I still have letter of intents on these guys, and it's January 23rd. Let's get through this game first. Like I said, this should be a victory. Sure hope I don't put foot and mouth on this one, but wow, our RPI is 3rd. Our rank is 6th now. So, Duke beats Maryland on the road by 20. That's what I'm talking about them being definitely the elite this year. We win 73-51. North Carolina wins 86-52. Syracuse wins on the road. Tied contest at Utah. Utah just on that edge where they can nearly knock off a team like Syracuse or Duke. And I'd say we'd have a chance against Duke and North Carolina coming up, but it is a slim chance. I mean, you look at Duke on the road at Maryland, and they win by 20. Florida wins comfortably. Oregon upsets Cincinnati at home. I think they're going to be back inside the top 25. I'm kind of surprised they aren't already. But you look at the top 25, there's plenty of teams outside of our conference that have really, really nice records. It's a little difficult to overcome that. Miami easily taking care of Notre Dame. Notre Dame's probably going to drop out of the rankings, maybe in Oregon replacing them. And Nevada beating Oklahoma State by a wide margin. So we've certainly established ourselves as an upper-end Tier 2 team. But I still think we're looking at a really tough stretch. Maryland will not be easy. They're coming off a 20-point loss to Duke at home. And they're going to play us for them at home. I think their fans are going to have high expectations for that game. Okay, here's our first look at Miami, and yes, they are favored. Not by a massive margin, but definitely favored. Florida, they're probably going to be heavily favored, and yes, they are. 90%. I'm going to take a look again. Do we have SAT scores? Still no SAT scores. Come on. Give me that chance to have a little sigh of relief. Now, 5-2, fantastic start. Especially when I thought the front end of our schedule was a bit loaded. But I'm looking at it now going, yeah, it's not as loaded as I thought, because the back half of the schedule is looking really tough. It's just tough, period. It's just a tough schedule, and that's just being in Conference A. But I think having the absolute best teams at home really hurts, because you're taking away what would be if we were playing Maryland at home, I'd say, hey, we're going to win that game. And then Duke on the road, it's like, okay, well, you go 1-1, but we lose to Maryland, and then we lose to Duke at home, you lose both games. Right? I'd rather have that trade-off. Oof. A 1-2 matchup, top 10 matchup, top 20 matchup, a top 15 matchup. Big week here in the conference. Big game day in the conference. Didn't catch our score. Somebody hit the century mark, though. We got so close that one time. And we did lose. Told you. I told you. See? I would much rather have had that game at home. We end up losing by 14. Syracuse upsetting Duke. Ooh. I thought Duke would be able to win, being that they were at home and how they've looked recently. Syracuse have looked slightly more vulnerable than Duke. Not here, though. They should move up to number 1 after that. Florida beats Utah by a wide margin. I told you Florida tier 1, Utah like 1.5 tier. Well, really both of them 1.5 tier. Michigan State beating Louisville on the road. Notre Dame beating Oklahoma State. North Carolina taking care of Nevada. So no surprises really, other than I suppose Syracuse over Duke is a surprise, but not really. Kept it close, but it wasn't enough. They were 53% from the field. They out-rebounded us by 9. We were +7 on turnovers, though. Wow. 10 and 9 fouls for the game, that's all? And Zendon Fleming, 29 points. 6 of 11 beyond the arc. This is what I'm talking about. That is your... Here's a 1.5 top team. A team that's up there. That's right there. A team that has high enough prestige to recruit those top 20 players. Something we aren't quite there yet on. So we just need a couple more quality seasons to boost the prestige, and then I think we can start fighting for a national championship soon after. Now we've got Florida at home. And like I said, we very well could go 1-5 over this stretch. We've opened it at 0-1. "21 games into the season, and we've got a wonderful 18-3 record overall, which is part of the reason why we are ranked so highly, 6th in the nation. But I could see that falling down a little bit after the Maryland loss. And if we lose to Florida, it's going to come down a lot. So this is going to be a very important game. But I think Florida is still at least a half tier above us. We're at home. Does that make up that half tier? Maybe not quite. I think we can make a contest out of it, but I don't see us beating Florida in that next game. Uh-oh. Scaring me with the mail. Okay. It's good stuff. Duke coming up. They're going to be heavily favored. Wow, 24% chance. Really? You don't think Duke is that good? North Carolina coming up. Yeah, I think they're that good. Ross and Cougar, quarterfinalists. 2 players on the list. North Carolina State's Jerry Frazier on top. Wake Forest second best. So you can see these teams that are up here in the rankings that are not in our conference. Cougar at 19. And Ross at 24. Good job, guys. I was scared that it was us losing our players. Speaking of, keep checking in. SAT scores. SAT scores, they qualified. Kennedy, just barely. 980 is our minimum. Qualified by 20 points. Brooker, a 1080, made it by 100. I was less worried about him. He had the 2.9 GPA. 2.8 seems to be about the minimum that I can afford to go after. 2.7 and below, very little chance of having the SAT score necessary and immediately being written off from the list of potential recruits. So I was definitely nervous. And look at Kennedy. I mean, look at this guy. A, B, A, C, A, B. He's not good at blocking, but A. This is potential to be one of the best players we've ever had. And then Brooker coming in. And remember, point guard, power forward. I don't have a graduating point guard or power forward right now. Cougar still has a year left, and if he doesn't declare for the draft. Morrison is only a, sophomore? Yeah, sophomore. So we are absolutely adding in some crazy depth for next season. I mean, we're 7 deep now. If none of these guys leave early, we're going to be 9 deep next season. Could potentially, strengthen this lineup a bit. I mean, Massett could go back to being kind of at that 9 deep. Derek Kennedy could move up. Derek Webb is going to struggle for minutes, likely, with Morrison and Charles Kennedy. I'm excited for next season. I really am. But we've still got plenty to do this season. Like I said, we're off to a really good start. But we've got this very, very difficult stretch coming up with the next 3 home games, all against top 6 teams. The next 4 games are all against top 10 teams. And our last game was Maryland, number 17, and a loss. So, I said that this could be a 1-5 stretch. Well, we're looking at that right now, going, yeah, 1-1 right now. We could lose the next 4 in a row. Little nervous about going forward, but really excited about where we're at so far. RPI still top 5. Rank dropped 1 spot to 7. Florida moved ahead of us, but we're still up there. Somehow Syracuse is still below Duke, even after beating them head-to-head. Bit surprising that. But that's going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. And remember, I'm aiming for the best of the best. So if you're ready to join me on my journey, hit subscribe. And tune in next time on my road to the record. Bye for now.